Hi, welcome to another episode of Firm Foundations Podcast with your hosts CJ and Tony. In last episode, we were in Genesis 21, and we had seen God keep his promise to Abraham in giving him a supernatural son. The arrival of the new kid had caused troubles with, or exacerbated the troubles with his concubine and his son from the concubine, Ishmael, and caused tensions between him and his wife, Sarah. And we saw how Sarah wanted to get rid of them, understandably, and how God instructed Abraham to listen to his wife and to honor her over his loyalty to his son and his concubine, which was actually his wife's servant. Family can be tricky. No need to complicate it with turning it into a triangle or any other weird shape. One man, one woman, and their children is hard enough. It's a blessing, but it's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see Abraham sending them off, and we actually explored Hagar's mindset and her spiritual journey through her actions on their way out from under Abraham's wings. And that's where we left off. Today, we're going to get into Abraham's covenant with King Abimelech, the king of Gerar, a Philistine king. This is his second interaction with him that we know of from Scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be interesting to some degree. It sets itself up for some speculation. Then we're going to roll into chapter 22.
Ooh, that's going to be... There's a whole lot in 22.
Yeah. This, let's just say it's very densely packed. It's packed denser than anything we've seen so far.
Mm-hmm.
I should say. So we're going to aim for the first 5 verses. I would really love to be able to finish chapter 22 today, but we'll see. We'll see, because just the first 3 verses alone are enormous in their implications and everything that goes into that. So I am excited. I was excited. We've already been here for almost 2 hours just talking about everything in here, and it's so rich. I hope, I pray, I trust that y'all will be blessed. So let's dig into it.
All right. Verse 22 in chapter 21. And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech the Philistine, and that was real good. And Philcol, I was going to call them Philistines at the same time. Yeah. Philistines. The commander of his army spoke to Abraham, saying, God is with you in all that you do. Funny they noticed that.
Yeah.
Now therefore swear to me by God that you will not deal falsely with me, with my offspring, or with my posterity, but that according to the kindness that I have done to you, you will do to me and to the land in which you have dwelt. And Abraham said, I will swear. Now, this guy gave land to Abraham, correct? For
Yeah.
him to dwell in and such. And,
Yeah.
every time, of course, every time I think about Philistines, they're the bad guys.
Yeah.
But in this particular moment, they're not the bad guys yet.
No.
There's been a good relationship between Abimelech and uh, Abraham. Uh, you know, the fact that uh, Abraham's allowed, which kind of sounds odd too, but he's allowed to dwell in the land,
Yeah.
the land that God has given him.
Yeah.
Abimelech is allowing this, uh, and Abraham, he sees this, and he's blessed him previously, uh, and now we're, you know, Abimelech is making sure that Abraham understands that he doesn't want him to, I guess, like counteract uh, the promise, um, making sure that don't come against me. If you find weak spots or whatever with your army, uh, he's trying to keep his people safe at the same time allowing Abraham to be
Yeah.
in there.
I mean, like I said, even after the debacle 2 chapters ago, when several years have gone by now, but God had warned and punished Abimelech for Abraham and Sarah's misdoings, misrepresentation of their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was Egypt, the same thing happened in Egypt, and the Pharaoh kicked them out because the king, the sovereign, can't take a woman as his wife and then return her to a commoner. That would cause all sorts of social upheaval. So, the Pharaoh did what was smart in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And Avimelech does the opposite, which is interesting.
He gave him,
He said, "Come on, live here."
right, gave him land, gave him animals, servants,
Gave Sarah a huge,
oh yeah, the thousand silver shekels,
yeah,
which was way above a normal price.
yeah,
Uh,
which is interesting when you put these two events side by side, with the opening verse here saying that the king Avimelech and his commander of his army spoke to Abraham.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I already made this joke once, but if the president, especially let's say a Middle Eastern president or king, the Turkish president, summoned me, and I was greeted by him and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Um, let's just say my whitey tidies would not go home clean. Um, uh, so it's a serious. It's potentially very serious.
Mm-hmm.
The consequences could be death. Um, but he starts by acknowledging and kind of breaks the tension by saying, God is with you in all that you do. Like, even though you're a scoundrel, uh,
For lying to me, yeah.
you're a prophet, and God's hand is on you, and everything you do prospers. Abraham, as we've seen,
Mm-hmm.
he's already wealthy beyond imagination for those times, in even for today, in most cases. Um, and he has his own private army. So it's curious that he would even allow him to live there, but he's now forming this alliance and strengthening this alliance, um, by saying, "Hey, let's not go to war. It won't be good for nobody. Just swear to me your fealty." It's like any medieval themed movie, any fantasy movie,
Mm-hmm.
swear your loyalty. Uh, the latest one everybody loved and was ranting and raving about was Game of Thrones. The famous scene when Jon Snow, King of the North, comes before Daenerys Targaryen, and he does not bend the knee, but later on he accepts her as his queen and the whole thing. But that's the idea, bend the knee, accept me as your king. Make sure that your children and your grandchildren and great grandchildren know this, because he says, "You're not going to touch me, you're not going to touch my offspring, you're not going to touch my posterity." Posterity, not posterity.
Yeah.
I almost said prostate.
That's
Don't touch
another
my
problem.
prostate. So, and this is interesting because Abraham says, "I will swear. I swear I'm not going to stir up any trouble for you, and I'm going to." And the this oath becomes binding on his descendants, the children of Israel later on, where God does not initially tell them to conquer the Philistine lands, even though it's part of their inheritance. He even, on the way out of Egypt during the Exodus, he takes them a different route so that they don't encounter the Philistines, so that there's no war there. And the idea is, if they see war, they might turn around and go back to Egypt. That's the reason given. But this is in preparation for that. Basically saying, okay, y'all have no beef with the Philistines, and don't start none. There won't be none.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also the fact that if the Philistines aren't against them, this allows Israel to be built up stronger and stronger, so to speak, so that they're not a very small nation. Now they're a bigger nation when things start happening. And like you said, he guides them around the Philistines because there's no purpose in going through their land, because they're being punished anyway. So why punish the Philistines with them traveling through their land? And like you said, if they did start a war, they may run back or whatever. But uh, the God's the perfect general. He knows exactly where he's got to have people.
Yeah.
And going through the Philistine area would have been a miscalculation of tactics at that time period. He's more interested in getting his people back to following him without any other conflict coming into play.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. Verse 25. Then this is wild because now Abraham's going to jump on him, on Abimelech. So then Abraham rebuked Abimelech because of a well of water which Abimelech's servants had seized. And Abimelech said, "I don't know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, nor had I heard it until today." So it's like, sort of like how what happened to him with Sarah. God, I didn't know that she was married. I didn't know that she belonged. I'm innocent again due to lack of knowledge, lack of information, and he's doing the same thing here.
Yeah.
You see any connection in there, or I mean, it sounds kind of coincidental, but
It sounds coincidental. It probably is, but you know what it is? What comes to my mind just now hearing you say it? It tells me that Avimelech has a very weak grasp on his own kingdom. His internal secret service is his intelligence agencies, which, I say this and people might scoff and like, haha, like those guys had. Trust me, that part of the world, these nations throughout time have been notorious for their intrigue, their palace intrigue, and their secret services and stuff that happens. We didn't invent spycraft during the American Revolution. That existed way before America as a nation existed. That existed way before the Ottoman Empire was even a autonomous region within the Great Seljuk Empire. That was just go back thousands of years. That spycraft has always been, and unfortunately always will be. Um, we even have testimony from other books in the Bible where they talk about, oh, he has ears in your bedchamber,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Uh, so it tells me that unfortunately for him, his grasp on his kingdom, his intelligence services are very weak.
Or hiding things on, it's sort of, this was before your time. Uh, even in the U.S., we have intelligence listening in on high authorities.
Yeah.
Watergate,
Yeah.
Nixon being the president, but he was being listened to on some things that caused him to get kicked out, so to speak, made him resign from being president. Uh, you know, so there's spies spying on everybody.
Yeah.
And back in those days, one of the reasons for doing such things is because they want to overtake the kingdom for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, uh, and I think that's happens. It happens today, even.
Yeah.
People getting uh, countries being taken over by others, and
It almost happened last year to Russia when Prigozhin, head of the Wagner private mercenary group, started marching his men back to Moscow,
mm-hmm.
and he was coerced into turning around and then, well, unalived in a helicopter crash. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, some say that the Iranian president, when he died last year, also was not an accident.
So there's coups going on everywhere.
Yeah.
All the time. Let me keep on going on. Verse 27. And so Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. Then Abimelech asked Abraham, "What is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs which you have set by themselves?" And he said, "You will take these 7 ewe lambs from my hand, that they may be a witness, that they may be my witness that I have dug this well." Therefore he called the place Beersheba, because the two of them swore an oath there. Um, the significance of 7 ewe lambs, stating that this is my well, is that a purchase? Like, okay, we dug it, but I'm going to pay for this well anyway, so that I can call it mine. Is that what I see happening here, or is there some more other significant meaning?
I think that's exactly what's going on there, because if we go back to verse 25, the word translated as rebuked,
Mm-hmm.
we've seen that word before. It's yaka? No. All right, let's do this. 25, where is it? Okay, reproved. There we go. Rebuke. Yaka. Yes, it's the same word that we saw in the 2 chapters ago when Abimelech rebuked Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
It actually has several meanings. In this context, there's two meanings, both to rebuke and to justify. So 7 lambs. Why 7 lambs? That's a lot, especially for something that you already own. Well, Abimelech gave Abraham God knows how much, and then he gave Sarah 1,000 pieces of silver, and again, that was way more than what was required. And he said, "This is both your rebuke and your justification, in the sense that I'm rebuking you, I'm sending you away from me. That's the rebuke. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm also justifying you, showing everybody around that sees, that witnesses this, that hey, nothing happened between us. She's she's still spotless. She's still perfect, and I'm paying a sum that some would dedicate to a goddess. That's how precious she is. That
Right.
and that's her justification. In that sense, it's the same sense where Abraham's saying, "Look, I dug this, but I'm going to give you." So I'm rebuking you, saying, "Look, this is mine, but I'm still giving you this because you said you didn't know any better. So, you know, I'm you're justified by me giving this to you, saying yes, you really didn't know. There's no bad feelings between us. It's
Mm-hmm.
all water under the bridge. That's the meaning. Um, yeah, but it's 7 because the word. So if we go down to verse 33, he names the actually verse 32, 31.
There you go. Called the place Beersheba.
Yeah, he called the place Beersheba because Ber means well. Sheva has two meanings. It means oath. It means 7. So it's like saying, let this be a sign. Just as I'm giving you 7 lambs, we are making an oath. Just just as I'm giving you Sheva, we are making Sheva. We are making an oath. It's a wordplay that becomes significant in and of itself because it's a sign of something important. And yeah, that's the
Is it
significance.
any significant on the 7 as far as being complete?
Could be, but
Well,
yeah,
it just hit me.
yeah,
I
could
was
be.
just curious.
It could be.
Okay. So 32, thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. So Abimelech rose with Philcol, the commander of his army, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. Then Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there called on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines many days.
Mm,
Uh, many days being a very long time.
a very long time, and this becomes significant. This whole um, portion of events becomes significant because it establishes Israel's inheritance in the land, in the Philistine side of Canaan,
Mm-hmm.
because they dug the well. Abimelech gave them land, and then he acknowledged that this well belongs to them. And guess what? They didn't sell it to nobody. Even when they left, guess what? When you leave your house that you bought and paid for, and you go on vacation or go on a world tour, there's some uh, cruises you can go on that go for 6 months, a year, or more, and they go all around the world. They're very expensive too,
I get.
but even if you did that, you come back to your house. Your house is your house.
Mm-hmm.
or you're a single Marine and you get deployed and you come back from deployment, the house that you bought is still your house. That land doesn't get transferred to anybody else just because you're not there. So when Israel comes back, it is theirs. Um, this establishes that inheritance, but also it talks about um, Abraham settling in Beersheba and calling on the name of the Lord again. So Abraham is still on his spiritual mission. He's still preaching obedience to the one and only creator of the universe is the meaning of that phrase. Um, he's a old time missionary.
Yeah.
Um, but hey, as we come to conclusion, do you have anything else to say on this?
No.
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 Okay, so as we come to a conclusion on chapter 21, if you would do us a favor and just like this video, it just takes a second, not even a whole second, a few milliseconds. It really helps us. It helps us get the word of God in front of other people. YouTube looks at silly little indications like that. So would you please partner with us
And share.
and share
And
and subscribe and comment? But I'll remind you of that a little later. Um,
are we ready to get this? Chapter 22 is going to be a
it
full
is.
meal in the first couple of verses.
Oh lordy, man, I might sound a little down, a little disinterested right now. That's only because we just spent almost 2 hours talking about this chapter. Like I got it out of my system, but I think I can work up an appetite again for this because
It's good stuff.
it's so deep.
All right. All right. Chapter 22. Now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. Then I said, then he said, Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. Um, I know on our discussion on this, we know where this is going. But the first thing that really hits me is him saying, Take your son, your only son, and offer him as a sacrifice. And, my mind just instantly goes to Jesus. And I know what we're going to be reading here. Every little bit of this, every word is pertaining to Jesus.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you take this.
Oh Lord. Okay.
Because, he has a lot of insight and understanding of the information that he looks up it's really deep, and it can go real. I mean, just things get so meticulous in what some of the people that you get your information from, and I can't remember their names. The three of them is the people that you talk about, the rabbis. They bring so much out of each word in this. It just blows my mind. I mean, I understand the fact that we're talking about Jesus here, but what you bring up with your knowledge combined with theirs is just so. Take it away, CJ.
I mean, I've said this before. I have, and I got even this. What I'm about to say, I didn't come up with it on my own. I borrowed these words from Dr. Michael Heiser of blessed memory, but he would say, "I have never had an original thought. Everything I have is I've learned it from someone else." So this is definitely true for this section. But first thing I would like to point out is in verse 1 where he says, "Here I am." The Hebrew is hineni, and hine by itself is a common, relatively common word. It means lo, behold. If you read King James, you've heard those words so frequently. But the ni at the end means I. So, behold, I, here I am. And it appears in the Bible in that form, somewhat less frequent. And as far as I can remember, it's always in relation to God calling someone. It's the only appropriate answer when God calls you, when He says, "Hey, yes, Lord, here I am. Have your way with me. Do with me what you please." We see it here in Genesis. We see it in Samuel when God calls little Samuel, probably just a 5-year-old kid. And it's the first time he's hearing the word of God. He's hearing God's voice. And he says, "Here I am, Lord." And then in Isaiah chapter 6, when God calls Isaiah, it's interesting. They think that Isaiah chapter 6, the events there, happened before chapter 1. But just in the narrative, it makes it easier for the narrative to put it in chapter 6. But when God calls Isaiah, he brings him into the divine council, and he comes upon heaven's scenes. That reminds me of the Marine hymn. If the Army and the Navy, good Lord, I'm going to paraphrase now. Can't remember my own hymn. Ever came upon a heaven's scene, they will find the streets are guarded by the United States Marines. Ra, all right. little
Hoorah!
moto moment. But when God says, "Who shall I send? Who will go for us?" Isaiah says, "Hineni, here I am, Lord, send me." And that's the only appropriate answer when God is calling on you. Here I am, Lord. It's a term of surrender. It's a term of obedience. It's a great place to start a relationship with. But then, like you said, we come to verse 2, and it says, "Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah." Before we get any further, in English it sounds so simple, go, but the Hebrew is a little more interesting. It's Lech L'cha. In Hebrew, if you wanted to say go, imperative form, speaking to a male person, the imperative masculine form of the verb go is lech. That's it. Lech. It comes from halach, means to walk. So get going. But it says Lech L'cha. And the L'cha is interesting because it has several meanings. And it only appears twice in the entire Bible in that form. One in a chapter we've already seen, chapter 12. So by using this incredibly rare form, incredibly rare phrase, the author, the Holy Spirit through Moses, is telling us to remember and associate this story with chapter 12. In which sense? Well, L'cha means, like I said, several things. One is to go for yourself, meaning that this journey in chapter 12 especially It wasn't for the benefit of God. It was it was cushioned amongst promises. Go now. Leave your father's house, leave your country, leave everything behind, everything you've ever known. I will bless you. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you. I will make your descendants vast and numerous. I will give you this land that I'm going to show you. And even that phrase where, go to the land that I will show you, it means that, hey, Abraham, this is a journey we're going to go on together. I'm going to be by your side every step of the way because I'm not telling you where to go just yet. I'm going to show you, meaning you're going to be following me, and we're going to do this together. It's an invitation to build faith. So I know one question that we've received before was about faith. How do we uh, gain faith? Where do we get faith from? It comes from a relationship with God, because as we go through life's hardships, as we go through trials and tribulations, He proves Himself time and again faithful and powerful and a strong advocate for us in every situation. And as we open our eyes to see everything that God has been doing for us, we begin to trust Him more and more. Our faith grows stronger and stronger. And then we can say what Abraham's going to say here in a bit. And that's why these two passages are linked from the very beginning, because it's all about this moment. When we get to verse 9, verse 8, it's going to be the crescendo of Abraham's entire existence. It's the capstone to his public ministry. Uh, we're going to see as we go on through Genesis, that this is going to be the last time that the Bible attests to God speaking with Abraham. I'm not saying that He doesn't speak to him after this, that they're estranged lovers, that they're no longer friends. That's not the case at all. But it's just none of our business. Any conversation that they have after this point, it's between Abraham and God, because this is the culmination of his public ministry. And we're going to see exactly how that is. The next thing interesting in verse 2 is the phrase, your only son Isaac. Well, wait a second. We just talked about how he had a son through his concubine Hagar, and how much trouble that situation caused because Sarah could not wait on the Lord, and because Abraham was, well, he's a man, and his wife gave him an opportunity and he took it. Uh, I would hope that I would be a better man than that in that circumstance, but you know what? Abraham is an amazing man, and if he fell for it, then I probably would too. Let's be honest here. Humility is golden. Um, so, what is this business about his only son? Well, the Hebrew word translated as only is actually yahid, which means your unique son. And this is going to be interesting because this phrase is a layup for what's going to come 2,000 years later, when the Apostle John, under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, pens John 3:16. God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. And the word translated as only begotten in Greek is monogenes. And monogenes was for the longest time considered a sum of its parts, meaning it's a compound word. It comes from mono and genes. Mono, only; genes, begotten. So only begotten. That's plain and simple. But over the last few decades, Greek scholars have gone back to classical usage of the phrase monogenes, and they found that classical authors like Plutarch and others more frequently used it in the sense of unique. And that's how we know that, the proper translation is that God gave his only unique son. Um, and why is that important? Because guess what? We've already seen passages that God says that the angels are the sons of God. And later, after Jesus, we see that we are called, followers of Christ are called the sons of God. So, how is Jesus unique? I mean, it's fairly obvious for those who believe, those who know, but, you know, we'll get to that right after we explain how Isaac is uh, unique.
Mm.
So, Ishmael is the firstborn. So, how is Isaac unique to Abraham? He's unique to Sarah because it's he's the only son, the only child period that she has, right? But how is he unique to Abraham? He's already had Ishmael, and he's going to have, after Sarah dies and he remarries, he's going to have other children, other sons and daughters. He's unique in the sense that he's the promised son. He's the son that, and I apologize again, my puppy is, my wife's working and my puppy is,
Protesting.
yeah, she wants her belly rubs, and we're in here. How dare we? So if you'll just bear with us. But Cookie, be good girl. Um, he's unique in that he's the only promised son. From the very beginning, from chapter 12, verse 1, where God says, "Get up, leave everything behind. I am going to give you such an inheritance to pass on to your descendants." You're going to have descendants. How is this going to happen? You have to have a son. And when Abraham said, "Oh, if you would only let Ishmael live before you, i.e., let him be my descendant, let him be my son to carry on and inherit all the promises that you've made to me." And God says, "No, I'm going to give you a son through Sarah." It was always Isaac. Isaac was the promised one. In that way, he is unique. He's not unique in being the first. He's not unique in being the last. He's the unique son of promise. And just like that, he is unique, just like Yeshua is, just like Jesus is, because Jesus is the one that was promised, the Messiah, the promised Messiah that was promised from the very beginning. Adam and Eve, when God said, "And your seed will crush the head of the serpent." It was talking about the Messiah. It was talking about Yeshua, Jesus. In later on, when he promised David that his son would sit on the throne eternally, and the scepter shall not depart from him, he was talking about the Messiah, Yeshua. In Isaiah, when he said, "And to us a son was born, a son was given, and his name is Eternal Father, Prince of Peace," so on and so forth. That promise that God made through Isaiah in that vision, the promised one was the Messiah. And I'm not the one that says that. It was for all my Jewish friends out there listening. This is not my words. I'm not identifying the Messiah as the one promised in Isaiah 53. You're going to say, "But how?" Rashi and Rambam and all of them say Isaiah 53 is the suffering servant is Israel itself. And guess what? You know what? You can go and listen to Pod for Israel, One for Israel, they have a great exposition, a great video on that explaining how it cannot be. I'm not going to go into the details of that. I'm going to actually take you further back than them. I'm going to take you back to the rabbis of the Talmud itself, and there's a great book you can let me show you. It's a great resource. It says what the Rabbanim said about Moshiach. And all it does is quote passages not only from the Tanakh, but also from the Talmud and from the writings of the Rabbanim, the rabbis, the sages of Israel. And the author shows how they identify the Messiah as the suffering servant. That's why the idea of there being two Messiahs came up. You know, the Messiah, son of David, Mashiach ben David, is the conquering king, the one that fights the wars of God and liberates Israel, brings all the exiles from afar, brings them to Eretz Israel, to the land of Israel, and brings them home. And he's the one that defeats the enemies of Israel and brings victory. But then there's also Mashiach ben Yosef, Messiah, son of Joseph, the concept, and that comes from Isaiah 53. And, oh Lord, I went way off track. But, so in that sense, the Messiah, Jesus, is unique, and that's the connection with Isaac, the first connection, as we will see. But then there's also, as you pointed out while we're talking, it's a mountain in the land of Moriah, Mount Moriah, and you know, if you look at the scholars, if you look at the sages of Israel, they'll say, you know, where Isaac was crucified, or I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Where Isaac was to be offered is where the temple stands today, or should be standing today. It was where the temple was built and where the third temple will be rebuilt. But some also see that it's the place where Jesus was crucified. Well, Jesus wasn't crucified on the Temple Mount, but if you look at the maps, antique maps, you'll find that it's on the same mountain range. So the place where the Akedah happens, the binding of Isaac happens, and the place where the temple is built, where God's glory dwelt, and then where Jesus would be offered up as a sacrifice, are all on the same mountain range. That's another connection between Isaac and Yeshua, Isaac and Jesus. Yeah. But there's a problem with this whole concept of God commanding Abraham to offer Isaac as a sacrifice, because you know it comes on later on. But Jeremiah 7:31, it says, and God brings up this his problem with Israel, and his problem is this: to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I did not command, nor did it come to my mind. Well, one second, God. If the idea of sacrificing our sons and daughters in the fire never came into your mind, what do you have to say about this, where you commanded Abraham to offer up Isaac as a burnt offering, an offering made by fire? So, you know, the Radak aptly points out that, you know, God's commandment to Abraham to offer Isaac as an offering is just that. He says, offer him. And we are trained to think, oh, an offering is a sacrifice that requires slaughter, and we'd be right. But, people say that the devil's in the detail. I love to say that God is in the details, um, because he is. Because just by looking at the phrase there, he says, offer him. He doesn't say, it doesn't necessarily include an actual slaughtering of the son. Um, but you might think that, oh, that's just copying out. So let's go on.
Would it be like an attempt?
Yeah,
Attempt.
yeah,
It's not the physical action. It is almost like, what are you willing? Are you willing to do this? I'm not telling you that you're going to do the actual physical uh, offering, but are you going to make the attempt to prove to me?
yeah, yeah. And Abarbanel in the 15th century uh, makes the same observation that I did when I thought of Jeremiah 7:31, and he goes, "It can't be that God actually meant for him to sacrifice um, Isaac, because that would confuse God's moral law. It would make it would it just doesn't mesh with God's character. So Rambam feels the same way, and in his guide for the perplexed, uh, chapter 3, verse 32, he says, the purpose of the Akedah, the binding, was to proclaim the truth that it is possible for a person to love and fear God so profoundly that he will do his will, God's will, even against natural parental love. But God never intended that Isaac actually be sacrificed, nor was it ever fulfilled. So he's looking at it and saying, look, we're going to see this, jumping ahead, but Isaac is never actually sacrificed. So that was never the intention. That means it doesn't actually violate the moral law. Mm-hmm. It doesn't violate God's character, because, like you said, the important thing was just obedience up to a certain point. It's a test in one way. And, if you've ever been to Sunday school, kids' church, you've heard this being taught in that language. It was a test. And, we tend to gloss over that. We tend to, think of it in childish terms, and discredit God if we have any doubt in our hearts. And just hang on with me. Rashi in the 11th century, well, actually, before that, Midrash Tanhuma states that the potter does not test defective vessels. So too, God tests the righteous to reveal their strength to the world. That makes sense, right? If you know something's defective, you're not going to test it to see. If I am working on a helicopter and I see that a blade is bad, I'm not going to measure the pressure in the blade. I'm going to say it's bad. What do we need to do to fix it? Do we need to send it up to eye level, or is there something that we can do to make it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Think of it. If you know the battery is bad, you're not going to go test the alternator. You're going to change the battery. We just had to do that in one car. Life is full of examples as such as this. The important thing is to test. If you have a star student, you put him on the math team, you put him on the debate team, or her, equal opportunity here. Uh, to test that child, to show to the rest of the world how how established they are, how good they are at what they do. It's the same thing that God's doing. He knows what Abraham is made of, and he's testing him for our benefit, so that we see, so that we understand. Oh, this is how God deals with people, and this is how we grow in our relationship with Him. This is how we learn faith. This is how we walk. Um, and Rashi, in the 11th century says, this was a test to make Abraham's love and fear of God known to all, and and that's what it is. He's not proving it to Abraham necessarily, although that meaning is kind of implied in Lech L'cha itself. Um, but yeah,
It's going to, in the next few verses, it's going to clarify something uh, to prove the outcome, the uh, that Isaac was not going to be physically killed.
yeah,
In the next few verses here, and I'll point it out to you. And you probably already know it when I say it, but we'll see how this comes about.
yeah. Um, so Isaac is set up as the shadow of the Messiah. He's going to teach us something about what the Messiah will do. And again, these are not my words. I'm going to quote the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud. In Avodah Zarah 19a, it says, "A man should always be as bold as a leopard, light as an eagle, swift as a deer, and as strong as a lion to do the will of his Father in heaven." So we already know Abraham is such a man. Here in a second, we're going to see for the third time that Abraham gets up early in the morning to do God's will. He doesn't dilly dally. He doesn't wait. He doesn't procrastinate. Um, but but Isaac is also set up to be the same kind of person. He We're going to see that he also has that steel-like character, that lion-like heart, and strength. Um, Furthermore, the Midrash Rabbah on Genesis um, is a commentary that gets into details and describe events that are not described in the biblical text itself to help explain what's going on. And another, and we didn't talk about this earlier, but the adversary, Satan, in the Midrash, comes to Abraham several times on the journey and says, various ways, turn around, don't do it, you know, this is crazy. And Abraham always answers him back with the word of God, with God's will, and you know, God has commanded me. I know who commanded me. I know the one who told me to do this, so be silent. In that sense, Abraham is actually likened to Jesus.
Right. He's being tested.
When Jesus was tested in the wilderness. Um, but Isaac was said to have said to his father, "Bind me well, father, lest I tremble and invalidate the sacrifice," in 56:8 of the Midrash Rabbah in Genesis. And this is significant because, we still haven't been given all the requirements for the sacrificial system that's going to come, through Rabbeinu Moshe, our teacher Moses, later on. But as we've said repeatedly, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He doesn't change. His rules don't change. His characters don't change. So what the commentators doing is showing that Isaac was aware of God's requirements for a slaughter, for a offering. He understood that the offering had to be perfect, without blemish. No cuts, no bruises, no broken bones, no missing hair, no pus coming out of nowhere, no pimples. And he's set up to be this guy, Isaac that is fully aware of what's going to happen. And he yields. Just like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane when he said, Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me, but your will, not mine. I'm going to do whatever our Father in heaven wants, regardless of its cost to me. And Isaac is, again, the rabbis, the sages of Israel, have put Isaac up in comparison with Jesus, knowingly or unknowingly. And they're showing the same character. No matter what, Lord, I will do. No matter the cost, I will do what you want. And in doing so, by making Isaac out to be a sacrifice, the way the text actually puts it, the rabbis, but especially putting him in line with the temple sacrifices that are offered for the sins of Israel and for transgressions and peace offerings and the whole sacrificial system. What they're doing is reminding us of another future event where Israel is saved out of slavery in Exodus by the Passover lamb. Again, it had to be perfect. And if you don't believe me, Peshikta Rabbat, Midrash Peshikta Rabbat is 36 says the Messiah, and this is where they'll take this portion, combine it with the sacrificial system and Isaiah 53, and connect it to the Messiah. The Messiah will carry upon his shoulders the sins of the generation and will be cast into a great furnace, and through him Israel shall be saved. Like a sin offering, furthermore, the Zohar, the foundational text of Kabbalah, on Leviticus 9 says, and it's drawing again on Isaiah 53 and applies it to the Messiah, son of Joseph, saying, the Messiah lifts up all those who are guilty in Israel. As it is written, he was wounded for our transgressions. And that's in 2, verse 212a. And the apostles of Yeshua, the apostles of Jesus, draw on all this, even though the commentaries come, as we have it today, come from a later time in history. The commentators of that day were drawing on commentators before them. They're not inventing anything new, pulling stuff out of a hat like a rabbit. They're transmitting, as we all know, when we talk about the Torah Shebel Peh, the oral law, it's handed down from Moses to Joshua, to the judges, to the prophets, and to the Sanhedrin, and to the rabbis after them till this day. So they're drawing on that foundation, and they're saying, look, the Messiah is the sacrificial lamb who was modeled after Isaac. They're all connected. And the apostles themselves, when writing the New Testament portion of scriptures, were drawing on those in light of inspiration from the Holy Spirit. And yeah. So another thing, going back to Lech L'cha, right? So several meanings, as I said. It's an invitation to go on a journey with God for Abraham's benefit. But also it means go to yourself, meaning find your true self. Go on an inner journey again with God and find your true self in God, in relation to God. And with the first Lech L'cha, he had to leave behind everything he had known until that point. He had to leave behind his family, all earthly attachments, all physical attachments. And then in the second Lech L'cha, he is put on a journey to leave behind all emotional, mental attachments to the very promises and their fulfillment that God made. The first Lech L'cha, he had all these promises that God made to him. In the second Lech L'cha, there's no promises made. There's only a call to make a sacrifice. Let go of everything. If you find your identity in the promises that God made to you, that is a temporary identity. It's here today, gone tomorrow. When you're dead, guess what? Your son's going to die, his descendants are going to die. Nothing's going to be left from this world. So come and find, just like we read the other day, a few episodes ago in, what was it, chapter 16 or 17, where God said, Abraham, I am your shield and your great reward. And Abraham said, but what are you going to give me? And we discussed how, God had given him everything except for the one thing that Abraham really wanted, the one thing that God really promised, which was his son. But from that moment on, Abraham was invited to understand that everything is fleeting, everything is temporary, that is physical. God is eternal. I am your shield. I am your great reward. You think, oh, these are your reward for your faith and your obedience. Guess what? Those are nothing. I, God Almighty, am your reward. And Abraham's whole ministry, his whole life, is bookended on either side by these two Lech L'chas, by these two journeys. It's a model for our lives. Come for the food, stay for the company, as some say. Come for all the benefits that God offers, but stay for the Creator Himself. That's how you grow in faith. God gives you the little bit of faith to just open up and say yes to the first journey so you can get all the blessings. And then your faith grows to a point where all those blessings, they don't matter nothing. They're nothing in my eyes. They're gone.
It's just being in the presence of him.
Yeah.
Verse 3. So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took two of his young men with him and Isaac his son, and he split the wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. Then on the third day Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place far off. And Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder." I didn't know he was Southern, but he went yonder
Yeah.
and worship, and we will come back to you. So that very last phrase, and we will come back to you.
Yeah.
And I don't think it is a phrase, him telling these two other people, yeah, we'll come back to you, as in, like, not really, because I'm going to sacrifice my son. I think he fully understood that we, both my son and I, will be back.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's because this whole story going on, and it's because of our knowledge of what's going to happen. No one could be sacrificed for us other than Jesus himself. Because Isaac was not a perfect sacrifice. He had sin in his life, just as every person does.
Yeah.
And so with that, even I think Abraham understood that his son would not be sacrificed because he wouldn't have been a perfect sacrifice.
Yeah, that's the same thought that the author of Hebrews had when in chapter 11 he says, verse 17 onward, by faith Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, in Isaac your seed shall be called, concluding that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from which he also received him in a figurative sense. He knew he knew God was able, even if he did sacrifice him, he could raise him up from the dead. Doesn't matter. It ain't nothing but a chicken wing for God. Yeah.
Yeah, that's there. Oh,
Cookie.
There that she has spoken. I want to hear more of the story. We were talking about this earlier, this third day thing. So on the third day,
Yeah.
Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off.
Yeah.
What significance do you want to bring up on this third day, along with a lot of third days that we discussed?
Yeah. I mean, I got to go back a little bit before I get there. Because in verse 3, again, we see this, and we already mentioned it, but so Abraham rose early in the morning, and this is the third time, or this is one of 3 times that this is said about Abraham. And it shows that that Abraham was quick to obey God, that he is timely, that he does not procrastinate when it comes to obedience. In 1927, Genesis, he wakes up early in the morning after he had this whole conversation with God, and he interceded for Sodom and Gomorrah and the plains cities, and he wakes up to see that they were judged, that they were destroyed. In 21:14, he intercedes for Ishmael, his son that he loved, and when God says, "Now listen to your wife," Sarah and send the servant and her son away, he wakes up the next morning, early in the morning, prepares water and bread for them, and sends them on their way. He's obedient. And again, it is with the same diligence and obedience that he gets up early in the morning. So that's a model for us too. Like, when God tells you something, get up early in the morning and do it. Um, it's so much better that way. But God was telling Abraham that he had to let everything go. And despite that, Abraham was diligent. On the third day, as you said, there's so much that happens on the third day throughout the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
It is very significant. It gets me going. Abraham sees Mount Moriah on the third day, the place where he's going to offer his Yahid, his only son, his unique son. God tells Israel to prepare to meet him on the third day in Exodus 19:11. On the third day he will raise us up, says Hosea in chapter 6 verse 2, because of what the suffering servant does in Isaiah 53. Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days. Esther went before the king on the third day to intercede for her people. The wedding at Cana happened on the third day, where Jesus did his first miracle. Jesus prophesied that he would rise on the third day, and indeed, on the third day, he did rise from the dead. And again, that actually very, one. This is just coming to me, but the wording in the Gospels that on the third day, versus 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Was he supposed to raise from the dead after being 3 days dead for 3 days, or was he supposed to rise from the dead on the third day? And it depends on how you read it, depends on how you see the calendar working. But in Hosea chapter 6 verse 2, let's go there. Starting with verse 1, come and let us return to the Lord, for he has torn, but he will heal us. He has stricken, but he will bind us up. So in the first half of the sentence, the prophet Hosea is taking us back to Isaiah 53. He has torn, but he will heal us. He has stricken, but he will bind us up. After 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will raise us up, that we may live in his sight. So he's speaking these things in context of Israel, but he has his eye on the suffering servant in Isaiah 53. And what do we see in the gospel? That the suffering servant prophesied by Isaiah in chapter 53 is buried in the ground for 2 days, and he is risen up on the third day. So, third day, it's full of promise.
A lot of people try to figure it out. Okay, so he was taken from the garden on Tuesday night, or would that be Wednesday night? And they're trying to, for one thing, their time isn't the same as our time. We go a day from midnight to midnight, where the Jews go from sunset to sunset.
Yeah.
And so you've got to realize that if something happens after 6 p.m., basically, that is the next day. It's not the same day going, because that's what we look at. We look at it the same day going through the evening until midnight.
Yeah.
And then our day changes. But in the Jewish aspect, that day changes after what the second star is seen at night, or when it becomes visible. Is that?
I think so. But again, I'm not gonna say one way or the other because I am not a rabbi and I am not trained in
What?
celestial bodies and
You
movements.
know where I got this from, right? If I'm not mistaken, it's from the movie or from the show The Chosen,
Could be.
and it was uh, a kid was talking to his mother about something going on, and she said, "No, we must wait until the second star appears." I think they're talking about this when the Sabbath starts,
Yeah. Well,
which would mean, you know, basically that it's Friday and evening time is coming up. They had to have everything prepared so that when the second star appeared, that's when that next day starts. So that would have been Saturday at the second star appearing that you could see in the sky, because it's not completely dark because some stars are coming out. Uh, and so that's when their Sabbath starts, is at the sighting of the second star. And then that is Saturday, and it goes throughout till the second star
yeah.
seen on the next night.
I mean, if that's what they said on Chosen, I am um, inclined to take it seriously
Mm-hmm.
because they do have a rabbi as a messianic rabbi, but a rabbi nonetheless, as a consultant. So, um,
And if I'm wrong, I apologize, but that's from what I remember, because I think that was in the first season, so it's
yeah,
been a while. But and that's what
I've
I remember from
I've
that, I
tried to
believe.
watch that show, but every time I start it, something happens, and we just never get through it. But yeah, um, regardless of how you reckon time,
Hmm.
um,
And I just went on one of those rabbit trails. I knew.
it's what we do here. If you haven't noticed till now, I mean, this is
So,
probably going to be episode 26, 27, something like that. So, but yeah,
okay, we'll pull the rabbit out of the trail and continue on here.
okay,
Which I think we've gone on for about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. Uh,
yeah,
but it's a good place to stop if you're good with that. If not, we'll keep going because there's some more things that.
yeah. Um, it's been about an hour and 20 something minutes, like you said. So, out of consideration for our viewers' time, I think maybe we take a break now and come back with a the rest of it for another episode.
Because I mean, there's so much more that we're going to be lining up with seeing Christ in all of this.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, I am really stoked to get to 8. I just really want to get to verse 8.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
um, because that's the last like big part, like really dense uh part. After that, it's
Mhm.
the other side, the flip side of the hill, and it's gonna go down and gonna be easy coasting after that. But um, I really want to go on, but what do you say? Uh, let's be good. Let's be good. And guys, thank you for tuning in. Um, I can't wait, like I said, for verse 8. And I hope your whistles are wet and you're excited to see what's going to go on next. As we've said before, if you enjoy this, if you've been blessed by our conversation, please like, subscribe, share, comment. It really does help us out. It helps YouTube understand that there's value in this production, and it will be inclined to push it to more people. And that's what this is about, getting the Word of God in front of people, answering questions that they might not have even uh, thought of asking yet. And if you have any questions, put it in the comments, or shoot us an email at support@firmfoundationspodcast.com. Um, we look forward to hearing from you, and we look forward to uh, answering specific questions that y'all have. We already had two special Q&A episodes. Uh, we look forward to having more,
Mhm.
because that's what we're here for, to serve you, to minister to you, well, minister to God through ministering to you. And if you have any concerns, any complaints, put them in there. You know, we take instruction. We know that we're human and we're not perfect. So if we've said something wrong, or if the camera work is not that great, or if there's something wrong with the audio or whatever, you know, if you don't like
The
our
background.
background, you know, just say something. Let us know, and we'll address it best we can. Um, if you have any prayer requests, again, you can put it in the comments, or if you want it to be private, you can email it to us. We will not breach your confidence. Um, Also, we have a little thing for churches out there. If you would like to share that.
Okay. Yeah. So if you would like us to show off your church with a T-shirt or a hat, you can send it to us at Post Office. Well, Firm Foundations, Post Office Box 121, Coleman, Alabama 35056. We would love to wear your shirt. Let us know who your church is, what your beliefs are, because there are certain churches that we will not support. Church of Satan, uh, the Mormon churches,
JWs.
JWs. So, it, but we support most Bible believing churches. It doesn't matter if you're Baptist, Methodist. You know, there's 10,000 different denominations, but if this is what your church teaches fully, without leaving anything out, uh, hey, send us a T-shirt, or send us a postcard, and we'll just give a shout out for your church.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, but we'd like to wear your T-shirt and show it off, and let people know who you are, where you are, and what your beliefs are. And I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
But we would appreciate it.
And we will even, if you want it, we'll put it up on our Facebook page also. Share it with the world there, um, including your uh, physical address, and however, whatever method you want them to contact you. Um, because, especially our shorts, if you notice, our videos are, our full length, long form videos are still in the early stages of being picked up by people and listened to. But our shorts, some of them go out to 45,000 views, 9,000 views, a couple thousand views, um, some only a handful of views. But the interesting thing is, we have views from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in a place where it's difficult to find a good, uh, faithful church, and you want people to be able to find you, so that they can connect to you. Because it's all good and well preaching the gospel from here through a video, but we need to live in community. So we want to be able to guide viewers to a good community where they can plug into the body of Christ and grow in their relationship with the brethren and God. Um, yeah. So it doesn't matter if you're not in America, if you're in Israel, if you're in India, if you're in
Pakistan, Australia. Man, we've had them all over the world.
yeah
It's really interesting. Several in Africa. Uh,
yeah Southeast Asia,
mhm.
um, it it's been a blessing to see how God is taking this. And we only started 3 months ago, believe it or not, and we're already recording episode 26, and it's already gaining some traction. Um, and don't worry about the idea of paying us for advertisement. We don't do that. We don't have sponsors, paid sponsorships. We don't do that. This is not a money grabbing scheme. Uh, we want to partner with you. We want to get the word out. We want to connect people to God. That's it. So, with that said, God bless you and keep you, shine His light on you, and give you peace.